Hi my sparkly friends, I hope you're doing well and having an amazing day. Welcome to the first of what I hope will be many masterclass series episodes where I'll be walking you through troubleshooting some of your biggest makeup struggles and helping you to feel confident in the makeup you're putting on your face. This is different from some of the how-to videos I've done in the past because this series dives more into troubleshooting and helping you figure out the makeup that works best for you, but with a spin. So, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the smoky eye, what you might be doing wrong, and how to fix it. Before we dive into all of that, I just want to say hi. If this is your first time here, I'm Emily's, but you can call me Em, and you're watching Makeupry. I've been a makeup artist for roughly 15 years, and one of the questions I get asked all the time is, what am I doing wrong? This series helps pinpoint and troubleshoot issues that cause your makeup to not look so pretty, to cause you to not feel so confident, and I want to help build up your confidence and help you feel sparkly and pretty and confident in the world. If that sounds interesting to you, and you like creativity and just having fun with your makeup, then be sure to click that subscribe button so you can come back and hang out again in the future, because I would love to have you here, and be sure to stay until the end because there's a special little bonus for you. Okay, let's get into it. So going back to that question of what am I doing wrong? Recently, someone asked me about how to create a smoky eye. It's not as simple as how do I do a smoky eye, it's how do I fix it and make it work for me? Well, the answer is kind of tricky because it gets complex. I know, not the answer you wanted to hear, but I'll break it down a little bit more, and hopefully these tips will help you feel more confident in sporting your smoky eye look that works for daytime and evening wear. First of all, let's talk about what a smoky eye is. Now, a smoky eye originated in the early 20th century as a means to darken the eyes for silent film. And you see that in film noir from the 1930s. In the 1990s, it was reprised for the runway with supermodels wearing what we now deem the smoky eye. And a classic smoky eye look is going to add drama and flair to your eyes. It's always meant to be dramatic. The reason for that is because of the application you use to apply it. So the eyeshadow starts at the base of your lashes and then it blends all the way up into the crease and usually beyond. As the eyeshadow is blended out, it creates what we call a smoky look, hence the name. The edges are diffused and softened, so it's lighter on those edges than it is closer to your lash line. You can have varying levels of intensity with a smoky eye based on the eyeshadows and colors that you use. Typically, when you think of a smoky eye, you probably think of blacks and grays and silvers, which is very classic, but you can get away with wearing a smoky eye that's lighter in tone. That's why when you go and do a Google search for smoky eye, you see a ton of different looks popping up in the search results. You're gonna see colorful things, you're gonna see dark, smoky, smoldering, sexy looks. You're gonna even see some lighter looks. It just depends on how your search results pull up because they're gonna be different for each person because that's just how Google works. So going back to Google, if you do a Google search and you say, how do I do a smoky eye? You're gonna come across a ton of different techniques. To be honest, they're all correct. Like, they're all real ways to do a smoky eye, but not all of them are going to be right for you. But how do you know what techniques are going to work? Let's actually determine how much intensity and how much drama you really want, because it could just very well be that you don't want a smoky eye, that what you really want is just a classic eyeshadow look, but that won't be a smoky eye. Do you want the drama? Do you want the depth? Do you want that smoky, sultry look? Do you want to have your eyes really pop out against every other feature on your face? Or do you want something that's softer, that balances out with the rest of your features on your face? It's up to you. Let's think of the smoky eye as being this dramatic thing. So the question comes down to, do you want softness or do you want intensity? If the answer is the latter, then let's move forward and building out the perfect smoky eye for you. So let's dive into techniques. Now we're gonna get a little brainy. You might want to take out a little notepad, some paper, or take out your notes app on your phone if you have it. This is where having special techniques for your own face is going to come into play, okay? So the first thing you need to know is what your undertone is. I know. You're probably thinking, what do you mean? Why do I need to know that? Well, your undertone is basically how much yellow or how much pink you have in your skin. For the sake of this video, we're going to talk more about warm versus cool, just to keep it simple, because most people fall within those two. And if you have a neutral undertone, then you don't have to worry about either or. Choosing a color that contrasts with your undertone can cause your eye look to be more intense and dramatic. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, I do it all the time. If you want it to look softer, more natural, less intense, less dramatic, my trick is this. Use an eyeshadow tone that's in the same tone family as your undertone, okay? If you have a warm undertone, think more yellows. You'll want a warmer eyeshadow for your smoky eye. On the flip side, if you have a cool skin tone, let's say you're more pink toned, then you'll want something that's a bit cooler. You can use a cooler brown, a gray even. So anything from that range is going to look really good as a smoky eye on you to be softer and more approachable. So now the next question is, how light or how dark do you want your smoky eye? Once you've determined what eyeshadow you're going to use, cool or warm, then you can pick the actual depth of the shade. So how intense do you want this? Do you want this to be really intense? You do the darkest shade of that tone family, or you go more subtle. The subtlest you can go is about 2 shades deeper than your natural skin. So let's talk about how heavy and dramatic a smoky eye can look. If you want it to feel more balanced on your face, and if a smoky eye feels really harsh, it calls more attention to your eyes than you would like, then the answer to that is to go lighter with your eyeshadows. I always recommend taking an eyeshadow that's 1 to 2 tones darker than your own skin tone, and it'll be the very subtlest smoky eye. Now let's dive into finishes. I think there's a lot of confusion about what eyeshadows you should be using for a smoky eye. Honestly, use the eyeshadows you like to use. The most important aspect of it though is not so much what formula you're using, but the technique that you're using for blending, for it to adhere to your eyelids, and so on and so forth. My preferred method for a smoky eye is to use eyeshadow because it's softer and easier to blend. But if you are pinched for time, you could use a cream product, like a cream pencil or an eyeliner. Just make sure that it doesn't set too quickly, because then you might end up with patchy ugliness. I've had that happen many times. Or you can just use a cream shadow that comes in a pot, like a MAC paint pot or something like that. It's completely up to you. So before we start, let's talk about how to make sure your eyeshadow looks good. So the only makeup I have on right now are my brows, because I feel like if I don't do my brows first, then I don't see the framework of my face. I don't see my bone structure as well. I don't see the planes and how I want to place colors. It's my recommendation that we do brows first, just so we see what we're working with. You'll notice I do not have concealer on. I don't have any foundation or anything like that out. I do have a moisturizer, which is what's causing the glow, but other than that, I don't have anything. Especially with the smoky eye, I do not like putting on a face base first, because then if you have fallout, then it becomes such a pain in the patootie to try to clean that off your face. So start with a fresh face and do your eyes first, and then move on to your face and your lips and all that. I like to use just a simple eyeshadow base. I do not like using concealer for the eyes, especially because the product can be kind of heavy. Concealers tend to be more creamy. They don't often sit nicely in the folds of your skin, so you might still end up with creasing, and the whole point of a primer is to make sure you don't have creasing. The oils in your eyelids kind of push your eyeshadows around. It's never pretty. So a primer is what will help prevent that from happening. Concealer doesn't always have the same ingredients to prevent that from happening and to fight against oiliness on your lids. Another product that people like to use are things like a paint pot, like a cream shadow. I still like to use a primer underneath that just to make sure nothing moves around, because if you have oily lids, or you're going to be out in the sun, or if you're going to be out in the rain even, you just want to do everything you can to make sure your makeup stays as long as it can. So I just like to use a clear primer. This one's Milani. You can use Urban Decay, you can use Too Faced, you can use Elizabeth Mott, you can use whatever eyeshadow base you like. The point here though is to wear one. Another key to having a good eyeshadow day, doesn't matter if you're doing a smoky eye, natural look, whatever, you need to make sure you blend your primer out. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making with their eye makeup. You don't need that much eyeshadow primer. I feel like with a lot of videos here on YouTube and on Instagram and on TikTok, you see all of these makeup influencers just putting so much product on their eyes, and that's just too much. You need the littlest amount, and when you go to blend it in, you need to make sure that you have just a slight stickiness to it, but you don't want it to feel oily. And depending on what primer you're using, it might even dry down to kind of like a powder finish. The point is, you do not want there to be any moisture. If you have moisture, then it's going to grab your eyeshadow and you're going to end up with patchiness. You're going to have colors that stick to just that wet area, and it's going to make your eyeshadow look uneven. And with a smoky eye, that doesn't look pretty. So you'll notice that I'm going back over with fingers that don't have any product on them, and I'm just going in and making sure everything's blended out, especially against that lash line. If it gets in the lashes, it's fine. It's fine. Let's talk about what colors kind of fall within that cool eyeshadow family. So I have this palette here. You don't need this. It's just more of an example because it has a good range of colors. We've got gray here, which is cool. We've got this cool lighter brown. This is also cool. Here's an example of kind of a neutral brown. I always like to use the back of my hand as a palette and kind of play around with the color and see if I want to wear that on my eyes before I even touch my eyes. Because then I can look at this and see how it's blending out, see how intense it is, and decide if I want to wear that color on my eyes. So for me, this is not a cool tone. So now I have this one here. Do you see a subtle difference? This one looks a little bit more orange and yellow. So this one I think is going to be a good one for me to use for the cool tone. You can also use gray if you want. Gray can also be warmer or cooler tone depending on how much blue it has in it. This one kind of falls in the middle of being warmer and cooler. It's kind of a neutral gray. It almost looks like it has a little bit of brown to it, so it looks a little bit more taupey. So I'm gonna stick with this cooler tone brown for this look. And this will be kind of like a medium intensity on the eyes. For brushes, I like to use a flat brush that's a little bit thicker. So this brush is flatter, but it also has a little bit of puff to it. I like this because it helps blend the edges as you apply your makeup. So let's go ahead and dip into the shadow here. And I dip and then tap to make sure I have all the loose powders off. That's going to prevent as much fallout as possible. So for a smoky eye, we start at the lashes. Okay, we're going to just tap it on the lash line area and just kind of softly move it upward towards the crease. And again, with the smoky eye, the more intense color is going to be near the lash line, and it will get softer and fade out as you move up towards the crease. And you'll notice that I'm just kind of tapping it back and forth and moving it into the crease. It'll look prettier in a minute. And you can just dip back into your color as you need it. And I want to make a quick note on color placement. If you have eyes that are closer together and you feel like you're getting more cross-eyed looking, or your eyes start looking closer together, don't apply eyeshadow here. Maybe only take it to about halfway across your lid. Focus it only on this outer corner of the eye, and leave this inner corner blank. You can always go in and apply a lighter color so that your eyes look further apart. If you have the opposite, where your eyes are further apart, then you can apply this shadow all the way into that inner tear duct. My eyes are about average, so I'm gonna just keep it here, almost to the tear duct, but not quite. I'm gonna keep that space blank because I personally like adding a lighter shade there for me. I've applied the eyeshadow in this rounded shape here on the eyelid. This is where you can control the intensity of the look. You can stop here and just blend the edge up, and you'll have a very soft, subtle smoky eye. Or you can take the color up just a little bit higher and then blend it out. Now, this is where understanding your eye shape is important. If you have deep set eyes, like I do, what that means is I don't have that much lid space. You notice how when I turn my head, this bone comes out a little bit more than my eye. Likewise, if you have hooded eyes, so I'm going to give you an example. This is what a hooded eye would look like. You see how my skin comes down and kind of touches the lash line? So if you have deep set eyes or hooded eyes, then you'll want to take this eyeshadow higher. And you want your face to be relaxed. Don't lift your eyebrows. You want to relax your eyebrows and look straight ahead at your mirror. And you're going to run your brush back and forth and create a little line there. You see how this comes all the way up here? When I relax my eyes, this is the part that you finally start seeing on my eyelid, on the mobile eyelid space. So the mobile eyelid is what moves in and out of your eye socket, okay? This is how much space I need to cover in order for you to see the smoky effect of the shadow. Now, if you have eyes that come out further, so you have like an average eye or maybe even protruding eyes, then you can take your eyeshadow just to the lid and blend it out, and that's going to be enough for you. For those of us who have less lid space to work with, we gotta make sure we apply shadows in the spots that actually work for our eye shape. So that's why I'm going to take this up even higher and tap it in and make sure all that color is evenly dispersed here. So there's no patchiness, it looks exactly the same. And now in this outer corner, I'm going to keep this rounded a bit. Now with the smoky eye, you can change the shape of this too if you want. I have round eyes, so I usually like to kind of make this come out to a little bit more of a point to elongate my eyes. It's up to you on how you want that to look, and you can just play around. You know, this is not a one size fits all approach. Depending on the shape of your eyes and your preferences, you can do it however you want in this outer corner. If you do have a hood, just remember that you'll have to take this out even further for that color to show up. Before we start blending, let's talk about brushes for a second here. Your blending brush is going to determine how soft or how intense that smoky shadow is going to be in the crease. Now, if you want a softer blend, you'll want a crease brush or blending eyeshadow brush that has longer hairs and is a bit fuller and fluffier. You see the difference? This one's going to give you more of a soft blend, whereas this one would give you less of a blend and just kind of keep it more intense. I'm going to do a softer look. I'm going to start with a clean brush, and I'm going to just soften these edges up using this brush, and I'm kind of going back and forth and just kind of doing like these little circular motions. You just want it to look really soft and hazy. Now, I do have my head tilted because I'm looking down at my mirror, and this will also help you keep your eyelid lifted to just see where the color is going, but then also make sure you relax your face, relax your eyebrows so you can see just how high you're taking that color. You can go as high as you want, but it will look more intense and more dramatic the higher you bring that color. So just be mindful of where that color is ending up. And that's again why I like a fluffier brush, because it's going to be a softer blend. So it's going to look less harsh as you blend it outward and prevent it from looking too heavy on your eye. With blending, just take your time. Don't feel like you have to rush this. If you find yourself struggling and the eyeshadow is not blending out, I like taking an eyeshadow that's 1 or 2 shades darker than my skin tone and using that to blend out the shadow. And you also want to make sure it matches the same tone family. If you have a cool undertone, you don't want something that's going to be too yellow. On the flip side, if you have a warmer skin tone, you don't necessarily want like a stark white to do this because it can look harsh. So use something that's within your color tone family and just a couple shades darker, not too dark. I'm dipping my brush into that shade and just getting the softest amount on there, and I'm going to use that to blend this shade out. Now, you might see other makeup artists apply like a transition shade before you apply the lid shade. It does not really matter. In this case for smoky eye, I like using this transition shade to help as a tool to blend something out, and making sure to get this inner corner blended out too. Now where that brow bone comes down can also be a little tricky sometimes. Eyeshadow for me doesn't always like to stick there. Sometimes it looks patchy no matter what I do. So if you have that struggle too, it's okay. It happens to all of us. And I'm just going to take a little bit more of that brown, and I'm going to just kind of soften this edge up here a little bit more using the fluffy brush, because then I have a little bit more control over how much color is going down. And I'm going to just kind of pull this down back towards the lash line to make sure most of that intensity stays where I want it to. So you see how soft that looks? Now I'm going to go back in with this brush real quick, and I'm going to just use the edge of it. I'm going to go back and forth with like windshield wiper motions just to make sure I have everything blended out there. And then I'm going to make sure I have everything in this outer corner patted in. So that's it for the eyeshadow application. I mentioned this before where I kind of kept this inner corner blank, and I'm going to show you what I like to do. And it's up to you if you want to do this or not. Again, if you want that more intense look, then you can bring that eyeshadow all the way in. But if you have close set eyes, or you want your eyes to look brighter and softer, then do this step. So I like to take an eyeshadow that is actually lighter than my skin tone, like a soft ivory shade or whatever. I like to use the same brush I used to apply the brown with, and just kind of run this lighter color in this inner corner. I did use all matte eyeshadows for this look. You can use satin, you can use whatever kind of eyeshadow you want. Honestly, they're all going to have the same application techniques. If you want a softer look, then usually mattes look really good. But if you want some more intensity, more drama, you can do a satin or a shimmering eyeshadow. It's completely up to you. Or you can do a mix of the two. The next thing about a smoky eye is the liner. Now some makeup artists will just apply a liner straight up and before doing anything else. I like to apply the liner after because I can assess how much depth I'm going to add to the eyes. So let's say we want a medium intensity. Typically we would do a black eyeliner, but you can also do a dark brown or a dark gray. You could even do colorful eyeliner if you so choose, like a navy blue or something like that. I am going to use black, but I'm going to show you how to make it look softer. So the eyeliner I have here is just a kohl pencil. I'm going to first apply it to this upper waterline. So you flip your lashes up and you apply it underneath here. I don't like to pull on my eye because it messes up the eyeshadow. So I just kind of lift my eyebrows up and then I kind of look down just to make sure this doesn't get into my eyes. And this is especially important if you wear contact lenses. I'm looking straight ahead and then down. It's going to deepen your lash line without losing lid space. This is great if you have small eyes, you have hooded eyes, or you have deep set eyes. If you have larger eyes, then you can apply it straight to the top lash line and it's fine. If you want a more intense black line look, you can go back over the lash line using your pencil, or you can take a black eyeshadow. So my favorite kind of brush to use for liner is an angled liner brush like this. You'll note that this is thin and it's angled. The tip of this brush is quite fine. I like this because it gives me more control. I can build up the product instead of having it be too thick from the get-go. Tap, tap, tap. And I'm going to tap it off to get any excess off because again, we don't want any fallout. I'm going to rest my elbow on my table here and I'm going to tilt my head back a little bit and look down into my mirror. And I'm going to start by taking this tapered end and I'm going to use that in the outer corner and just kind of drag that inward. The reason I'm starting in this outer corner is because I want more intensity in this outer area of the eye versus it being in the inner corner. If you start in the inner corner of the eye, then most of your product is going to be here, and then you have to match that same intensity across your lid, and that can look harsh. So start on the outer corner and then drag it towards the center so you have a softer fade going inward and you can control that intensity of the black. And another thing is you don't necessarily have to draw it across, you can tap it in or stamp it into the lashes. And this will also make it so it's a little bit easier to control, especially if you have a shaky hand or you have dexterity problems, just stamp it in. And eyeshadows are way more forgiving than say a liquid liner or even a pencil. And I like to kind of push it into the lashes as well. It makes it so that when you apply your mascara, you have no black gaps. Now in this corner, I'm just going to kind of take whatever's left on the brush and just kind of smudge it as close to the lash line as possible. Now a classic smoky eye typically keeps the shape to your eye. You won't have like a cat line or anything like that. Now what we're going to do is the classic smoky eye look. Now we have this clean line here. We're gonna smudge this out. So I have a smudging brush like this. It's like a teeny tiny dome shaped brush with a finer tip, and I use this to just smudge out shadows. So this is going to soften this up even more, and you can be as messy as you want with this black, because what it's going to do is kind of fade that intensity out so it's not a harsh line, and this is what's going to give it that signature smoky eye look. You see just how soft and subtle that is on that lash line now? You still see intensity. My eye looks very deep there, but then it just lightens up as we go out. I love this. I think it looks so pretty. I'm going to smudge it out in this outer corner just a little bit more, and I'm actually going to smudge this up a slight angle like this, because if I go around the corner of my eye, then it's going to do this motion. It's going to come downward. It's going to make my eyes look a little bit more droopy. So I'm keeping this uplifted by just kind of pulling this taut and kind of going upward at this angle here. Here's another reason why I do not like to apply foundation and such first because now we see some fallout. It happens. If you've done all matte and you feel like you want a little bit of shine and sparkle, you can apply a little bit to the center of the lid, or you can apply it into just the inner tear duct area. I'm just gonna leave it as is. I think it looks really pretty. Now you can apply mascara and call it good. So I'll do that. Applying a really good volumizing mascara is really gonna make this look just pop. If you have really long lashes, then I'm a bit jealous because my lashes are not that long. So now we've got these lashes that create extra intensity on that lash line. Now say this is too intense for you, then instead of doing black, as I mentioned, you can do a brown instead and it'll be a bit softer. I do see a spot there that I want to blend out just a little bit better. So now we're done with this cooler toned eyeshadow. It's a little soft, but it looks nice. It looks smoky. It's got drama as it's intended to because it's an eyeshadow applied all over the lid and smoked outward. Okay, now let's move on to doing a brown that's warmer toned. For the warmer skin tone, I'm going to use this one here. You see it's a little bit more of a yellow brown. This is a few shades darker than my skin tone, so it's going to be a softer look on me. I wanted to show you the difference on how we can control how intense your smoky eye can look based on skin tones and also the depth of shadows that you use. So I'm going to speed this up. It's going to be a very similar application method to this side with applying the base color and blending it up to the crease and then making sure that I pull that color all the way up as high as I need it to, and then softly blending that out, and then applying a lighter color here in the inner tear duct, and then applying the liner and smoking that out. Very similar to what we did here. Here's this. I wiped this brush off too, just so you know. You can also see that it actually does not take as much time to do a smoky eye than what it looked like on this side. And there we go. Here's the warmer eye and the cooler eye. The cooler eye is going to look more intense, not only because it's a darker, deeper color, but because it pops against my skin. This yellow toned brown is going to blend a little bit more into my skin tone. So this is softer, but it's still a smoky eye. So if you like a little bit more drama, a little bit more sexy, smoky, deep depth, then you can go with the darker or something that's opposite your undertone. If you want it to look a little bit more natural, a little more subdued, a little less intense, a little less dramatic, use something that's in the same color tone as your undertone. So the subtle difference between using warm versus cool and changing the depth of your shadows is how you can make a smoky eye work for your eyes. You'll notice that I didn't apply any liner, any shadow, or any mascara to this bottom lash line. That's because I have not yet applied foundation or concealer. So we're going to do that off camera, and then I'll be back to kind of give you a wrap up and some final tips. I've applied some foundation and I've also applied some concealer. With the concealer, I've only just applied a little bit of like a color corrector kind, but it's not brightening. This matches my skin tone. Now, here's where things can get a little icky with smoky eyes. This is a tip you're not going to find in other smoky eye videos, okay? The brighter you make the under eye, the smaller your eyes are going to look, and it's going to change how you perceive your smoky eye. If you want your eyes to look bigger and you want that smoky eye to look perfect and on point, do not use a brightening concealer under the eyes. Just use something that is as close to your skin tone as possible. Your eyes are going to look bigger when there's shadow under the eyes. That's going to make or break your eye look. And you heard it here. You didn't hear anywhere else, okay? So I have this concealer on. I have not applied powder or anything. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a translucent powder of sorts. I just realized I panned this. Oh my gosh, I panned a product. I panned my product, you guys. I didn't even notice that. That's so exciting. I have not panned a powder in years. Here's how we're going to powder under the eyes, keep this bright, but not close your eyes off. If I just leave it as is, my eyes are gonna look smaller. I'm gonna have brighter eyes, but we need that shadow underneath to balance out the entire eye look, okay? So what I like to do is I like to take a small brush. This is a clean brush, there's no product on it, and I dip it into my translucent powder, and I'm gonna tap that off. I'm going to just tap around the bottom lash line. Okay, just like this. I'm not going to bring this down any further because when I apply powder under my under eyes, I get a lot of texture. I have aging eyes just like everybody else, and I don't want that texture to be pronounced. So I am applying this powder in the most strategic spot, which is just under this lash line. Now this is going to prevent your eyeshadows, mascaras, or anything like that from transferring down. Now again, a signature smoky eye is just going to be messy and dramatic regardless. But if you want it to look clean and you want it to look precise and you want it to be pretty, then do this step. This is going to help keep everything locked into place. I already have a little bit of transference there from my liner and my shadow. And another thing is I tightlined my upper waterline. This particular eyeliner bleeds, so it transferred to the bottom waterline. I'm just gonna leave it. I think it looks fine. So now that the powder's on, I'm going to take a pencil brush, the same one I used to smoke out this lash line, and I'm going to apply the same color to the bottom lash line. I'm going to keep the intensity here on the outer corner and drag it in just like we did on top, because we want it to fade inward so the eyes do not look closed off. If you have smaller eyes, I recommend only doing it about 1/3 of the way in to just the outside of where your iris starts. So for me, where the brown of my eyes starts. So about right here. But what this is going to do is it's going to keep your eye balanced so that all the color and the heaviness isn't on the top, but it brings a little bit of it down here too, so your eyes just look more balanced. And this is especially important if you do have hooded eyes or deep set eyes. If you have larger eyes, you can pull it in further. So with this eye, I used this brown, so I'm going to dip into that, get the excess off, and I'm going to smudge where the brown of my eyes starts, okay? I'm just going to leave it there. You can also take your finger and just kind of soften that up, just if you feel like it's a little too intense. And same thing on this side, just to the iris. And make sure you connect it in this outer corner, and then smudge it down and drag it in so that it's blended. And then if you like wearing mascara on your bottom lashes, go ahead and apply that. I'm going to, because I like mascara on the bottom lashes. I think for me it looks nice. And it also makes my eyes look bigger. My bottom lashes are actually really long. You see how long they are and a little clumpy, so I just kind of run my spoolie through it to get any mascara clumps out and to just soften that up a little bit more and to prevent mascara from transferring. If you do have a little bit of transferring, then just take the brush you used to apply that powder and just use that to sweep away any shadows, and then you can just take whatever's left on the brush and set the rest of your foundation and concealer here, and we are done. Cool. A little bit more intense in the color and depth. Very traditional smoky eye with a lighter brown. Whereas this eye looks softer. Even though it's still brown, it's a very yellow brown. It works with my undertone a little bit more, so it's going to be softer, more subdued. It's not going to pop as much against my skin tone. It's just going to kind of fade away. Which one do you like? Do you like the more cool tone on me, or do you like the warm tone? So that, my friends, concludes our masterclass on the smoky eye and making it work for you. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you learned something. And if you've made it this far in the video, please leave a comment with a flame emoji just to let me know that you've made it this far. And I appreciate you coming and hanging out with me today. And if you have any requests for any special makeup technique, or if you're struggling with some element of your makeup and you need some help with that, let me know, because I would love to continue with these masterclass episodes and bringing to you some troubleshooting steps and some pro makeup artist tips to help you master makeup on your own face. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really enjoyed our time together. And if you found this helpful, then I would appreciate you giving me a thumbs up, leaving a comment, because that helps YouTube know to send this video out to more people to see. And also share it with your friends and family, or share it with anyone you know who struggles with their makeup, because I hope that this will help them too. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sparkly and stay electric as always.